I didn't set up my screen. I'm gonna do that right now. Okay, so today we're gonna look into Jordan Peterson's Michael teachings chart, his Vedic astrology, and his human design, and see if we can piece together interesting overview story about who this guy is. So I'd like to start off with doing his Michael chart first, because Michael teachings is probably the most interesting system that I've come across, because it deals with your soul, what your soul is like, what characteristics your soul takes on, and what it's the whole system's about the reincarnational cycle and how our souls stay the same, like what characteristics of us are the same throughout each life, and then also which characteristics we take on for a life. And so I made this chart. I had this channeled from Shepherd Hoodwin. His website is his name, shepherdhoodwin.com. SHEPHERDHOODWIN.com. He does channelings of these charts. So I reached out to him a while ago. I've been getting some famous people's charts channeled because I want to learn more about people and learn more about the system. So I've been fucking paying for all these charts. At some point I got to learn how to do channeling so I can do it myself, and so I don't have to spend so much money. But Shepherd is amazing at what he does, and the information I get from him is awesome. So I started making these a different way to present his people's charts than the way that Shepherd initially sends out the charts and the way they look. I can show you what his chart looks like. Let me see. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna get this open on. Oops. I need to be on this fucking screen over here, so you can't see me while I'm looking at my stuff. But I'll show you, just so you have an idea of what it looks like when you get a chart from him. Jordan Peterson. Michael teachings. So this is what the chart looks like. Zoom out. So yeah, this is what you get when you order it from Shepherd. He's got this column system that shows how all these characteristics are kind of aligned with certain archetypes of people, of types of people. There's 7 different roles. So you can kind of see these columns, but it's really hard to make sense of the chart as it is just by looking at it. It's a whole system, and there's so much information to sift through to see it. But I made this different version, the more color-coded, color-based. So he's I'll just get into, I'll start talking about all the different characteristics of this. Maybe as an intro, I'll say, Michael teachings looks at your soul type. You have a role, which is a certain soul type that you choose when you start incarnating on Earth or any planet. You stick on that planet for a while. I mean, you go through this whole cycle of different kind of focuses. So there's, I'll explain when I get to it, I guess. I'll just start going into it. So, okay, so for Jordan Peterson, his role is scholar. And scholars are the neutral type. They're there's actually 7 types. You can see this here. I have this little chart that shows each of the main types. So you can see in this row called role, there's servers, priests, artisans, sages, warriors, kings, and scholars. So there's 2 types for each of these axes. There's 3 axes. Oh, there's 4 of them. There's one for inspiration, one for expression, one for action, and one for assimilation. So the inspiration one deals with the internal world and inspiring people. It's more of the emotional aspect of things. The servers are an ordinal type, which means that they focus on one-to-one inspiration. They like to help people in concrete ways. Serving the common good. They have 2 psychic inputs, one for consensus reality and the other one for the common good. So they always, focus on the common good. Priests are the cardinal version of that. So they got 2 inputs as well, one for consensus reality and one for the higher good. So priests are, like Obama's a priest. They try to inspire people spiritually and want people to grow spiritually. That's kind of the priest. Artisan is expression axis, ordinal. So ordinal means it's one-to-one, and they have lots of little projects, creative projects. They have 5 psychic inputs, which are modular. They can plug different things into what their attention is focused on, and they have the ability to mix things together. Super sensitive and creative and artistic, but I mean artisans can take any form, but they usually need a creative outlet of some kind. The sages are the cardinal expression axis. They deal with self-expression, creative self-expression. They're all about communicating, and through their communication, talking with people, they develop wisdom and insight they get to share with other people. So that's a lot of famous like actors or sages. Anybody that's got like a very particular personality and way of expressing themselves is probably sage. So the other 2 of the action axis, there's warrior, which is the ordinal type, which is more focused on one-to-one, and they're really into business. War is obvious because they're warriors, but they're very physical, action oriented. They like getting things done. And kings are very similar to warriors, except they deal with trying to lead groups. Trump is a king. Jesus was a king. Kanye West is a king. I think Buddha was also a king. So they're all about self-mastery, and they can't always get into position of leading groups, but that's what they like to do when they can. So now that brings us to scholar, which is Jordan Peterson's type. The scholar is the neutral type. They're not ordinal and they're not cardinal. They are able to, be flexible with how they deal with groups or individuals one-on-one. But I mean, they're all about studying. I'm a scholar too, so scholars that just love researching and learning more information and knowledge. They need something to study all the time. If they don't have something to study, things don't really work out for them. So they always have to find something to study. Each of these types has to do. They have certain things that they have to do to fulfill their role and to feel fulfilled. So yeah, he's a scholar. The scholars have the ability to know the other types better than anybody else because they're neutral and they can see how all the other types function. So, he's a psychologist, Jordan Peterson. He's really into the big five personality type system. And so he talks about people in that perspective. But scholars want to provide information for people. They function like the Akashic records. Like the Akashic records is the plane of existence where every fucking thing that's ever happened is recorded. Even in parallel universes and stuff, all this information is recorded, and so it's never lost. But scholars want to, research into something, figure out something, and then provide the information so people have the resources and ability to check it out for themselves. So they do a lot of research. So let's get into his different characteristics. There's also something in the Michael teachings called the essence twin. So whenever you decide to start incarnating on the planet, you have a choice to have an essence twin, and most people have essence twins. Some people don't, but most, like the vast majority of people do. I think Obama doesn't, but most people do. And the thing about essence twins is when they're not incarnated on the planet. So the essence twin is the same. It's a soul, just like you. They're living out their life, but you choose an essence twin that supports you in your spiritual evolution on the planet. So you don't always meet your essence twin. I think it's about like 30% of the time you actually know them. When you're in a relationship with them, it's really intense because it's all about, spiritual growth for you and the essence twin. So it can get pretty intense. It's not like how you would think like a soulmate would be, where they, everything works together so well and it's so easy. It's challenging, but some of the time, the essence twin is not alive. They're not incarnated, so they're discarnate. And when that happens, when your essence twin is discarnate, you actually their energy piggybacks on your energy, so you actually get the qualities of that type. So Jordan Peterson's essence twin is a king, and he's discarnate. So he's got a lot of king style energy, which is great for leading groups, expecting, the highest of people. I mean, they're different than priests. I have to look really quick to see what, but I just read about the king a little bit because I want to see what the difference between the king and the priest is, what they say about it. Hold on one second. So king. So kings have a positive pole of mastery and a negative pole of tyranny. In mastery, kings seek to be in command of their own faculties. Tyranny means expecting too much of others and bearing down on them what you think they should do, assuming that they know best and have the right to decide. Kings seek excellence and are all about implementation. They are prone to perfectionism and can be too hard on themselves and others. That's totally true with Jordan Peterson. He's a total perfectionist. I'll get into this later, but he's a 1 in the Enneagram, and that's the perfectionist. It's exactly what the type is. So he's got these king characteristics that follow him around, especially because his essence twin is not incarnated right now, so he's getting piggyback energy. And what's interesting about scholars is that because they're so neutral, you won't necessarily see their characteristics so clearly. Their essence twin bleed through will kind of overtake the scholar influence because the scholar is so neutral. But he's a scholar because he studies. He's like an intense studier, but he's totally about self-mastery, which is what the kings are about. And they have high expectations for other people. And he definitely has that. So that's his essence twin. He's also got there's something called the cadence position, cadence, and greater cadence, which is kind of there's this system in the way that our souls are set up, where depending on how you're oriented in your soul group. So maybe I should explain this a little bit better. Every individual is part of what we call an entity, which is about 1,000 souls that decide to be, have the same focus. They're all to do, they're all incarnated on the planet to have certain kinds of experiences. So they have a certain orientation to things. And in your entity, the group of 1,000 souls, there's certain placements in how you are. You basically, each person has a unique set of characteristics based on how they sit inside the entity. They take different positions. So cadence position is, I forget all this shit right now. It's hard to really explain. The easiest thing to say is these are secondary traits that you take on. So his cadence position is warrior, his cadence is king, and his greater cadence is sage. So he's got some extra warrior characteristics, which is all about working hard and being very action oriented, getting and he's got secondary from that is more king influence. So this guy, he's definitely action oriented for sure. If you've got king, he's got king, warrior, king. It's just interesting because it shows that he's he really wants to study the action oriented aspect of things. So yeah, he's studying all this stuff. He wants to study action. It's very clear because that's scholars about studying, and he's got all these characteristics that are action oriented. So let's keep on going down the chart. Your greater cadence isn't really a strong influence unless your cadence is also the same type, the same role energy as your greater cadence. But it's not in this case, so he doesn't have too much sage energy really. It's more the king and the warrior that he's got going on as strong secondaries. There's something called a task companion, which is a soul that helps you with your tasks, like things that you're here to work on. Most of the time they're discarnate. I haven't actually come across anybody's chart where they're incarnate yet. But his is an artisan, which is, like I was saying, is the very creative type, very sensitive. So I noticed that most people choose artisan as their task companion. Maybe it just helps to have this extra creativity as an asset. So maybe, I mean, artisans are doing a lot. All these task companions are fucking artisans. Mine's a scholar, so I'm just I'm really focused on the whole scholar energy. I got scholar secondary too, so I'm scholar primary, scholar secondary, scholar task companion. I'm really big on studying, I guess. So okay, so like I was saying, there's an entity that we're all a part of. So in the Michael teachings, Shepherd Hoodman has he's got numbers for different entities. So there's actually 7 entities in a cadre. So a cadre is a group of 7 entities that are all part of the same deal. They're all, brother and sister souls, kind of all. Maybe you could say that the people who are in a different entity but the same cadre are like cousins. But the ones that are in your entity are like brothers and sisters, something like that. I don't actually know too many people that are in his entity. He's the 4th position entity, which is the scholar. It's aligned with the scholar energy. So more studying, that's his entity. I think I wrote this down somewhere. I have this little PowerPoint I made. So let's find what it says about his entity. Okay, so the only people we know that are in his entity are Orson Scott Card, the author. What the fuck did Orson Scott Card write again? Ender's Game. Yeah, okay. Ender's Game. That's Orson Scott Card. So they're the same entity. They have the same focus. Oh shit, I didn't write this down. Usually there's a. Let's check this out real quick. So I got this little spreadsheet of all the different entities. So his is Cadre 11, Entity 4, and it says that they explore what is taken for granted, and that's all the information we have on it, unfortunately. And there's not that many people that we know that are in it, but Orson Scott Card's in it, and Jeffrey Dahmer is also in it. I think he's a king, but Jeffrey Dahmer has like 4 previous cycles, and Jordan Peterson has 10 previous cycles, which I'm noticing is a pretty common number for people who are in the popular sphere. You don't really see too many people that have 4. That's kind of rare. But actually, they say that 4 is the average on the planet. So, I mean, probably people that you interact with, it's going to be 10. Or people that I'm interacting with, it's going to be around 10. I've got 10 also. So, it's just a common number that I've come across for all the people that I've been studying. So what that means, previous cycles, is that before he incarnated on planet Earth, he was on 10 planets before this one as an individual sentient soul. So he's on his 11th right now. He's on his 11th cycle. So, okay, let's get back to his chart a little bit. So this is a really interesting characteristic that you can see in your charts. There's 3 different orientations you can have, which means that you you're focusing on a certain aspect of experience and existence, and it's either truth, love, or energy. So truth deals with the intellect, logic, or the mind finding truth. That's the highest version of, truth is the highest expression of knowledge, I guess. Love is the highest expression of emotion. So if you're oriented towards love, it's about the emotional. And energy, they also call it beauty. I like to call it energy because it's not necessarily a visual thing, but maybe it is. That's a part of it. But it's more about the vitality and the energetic, the physical vitality, energy of experience. So what I've realized is people who are oriented in energy are they're probably drawn to war. I'm oriented in energy too, and there isn't too many people that I've come across that are also oriented in energy. But I noticed that the people that are oriented in energy, like something about them, they really fascinate me. That's like the most interesting people to me. I mean, I like a lot of the action oriented characteristics for some reason. That's just, I think it's because I've got the energy orientation. So like warriors and kings are very interesting to me. So other people that have energy orientation, and I'll probably talk about more of them at some point. But let's see, we've got Aleister Crowley. He's energy orientation. Sam Harris, which is, somebody that Jordan Peterson's debating a lot. He's energy orientation. Adolf Hitler, I mean, it makes sense because, I mean, war is the fucking thing we know him for, just totally dominating, destroying, and dominating some other group of people that he's not a part of. Energy, he's studying that. L. Ron Hubbard, same thing. Maynard James Keenan, the singer of Tool, and Jordan Peterson. So those are the only ones I have. I mean, I have about I only have 20 celebrities channeled right now because it's a chunk of change every time I want to channel someone. But yeah, so Aleister Crowley, Sam Harris, Adolf Hitler, L. Ron Hubbard, Maynard James Keenan, and Jordan Peterson. They're all energy oriented. So, I mean, what this says is he's probably been in war a lot. He's specializing in the physical. He wants to know the physical aspects of things, the actual vitality and energy dimension of life. So I'll talk more about that when I get through the rest of the chart. He's got there's something called male energy and female energy, which my understanding is male energy is outer directed and single pointed focus, and female energy is more inner directed and creates more of an environment and kind of goes in several directions at once. So female is more environmental and male is more penetrating and going a certain direction. So if you have high male energy, you're just really focused on the external and, achieving things, getting things done, being very productive. And this is crazy because his male energy is 92 out of 100 total points balance. So he's got 8 8% female energy, 92% male. So he's just like fucking. He's intense, man. That's like he's a fucking hard worker. That's just crazy stuff. Like, it's weird because like the people I'm really attracted to, a lot of them have high male energy, and I'll probably talk about that more. But again, like I don't know why. It's just like the masculine energy is very attractive to me for some reason. It's something that I really want to study and understand. So he's got one of the highest ones that I've come across. That's absolutely crazy high. So that's an interesting characteristic, and that's all the stuff I've been saying so far. If you see on this essence column on the left, this is all stuff that's the same for him in every life on Earth. He's got these characteristics all the time, every life. So, so his frequency kind of deals with maybe how fast you move or how fast you vibrate. If you're a lower frequency, you're kind of more solid, and if you're higher frequency, you're more airy. I think the higher frequencies fill themselves with more activity, but he's right in the middle. I mean, 47's kind of the average, so he's more fluid. You know, he's not solid necessarily, and he's not airy. He's more fluid. Like I was saying, he has 10 previous cycles. There's something called a raw number that you get as part of your channel chart, which shows it shows you what your global job and community responsibilities are. And his is called his global job. So these are just things that it's your job on the planet, what you're here to focus on. His is called protection, which I believe is creating things for resources for people to have and to protect them. You know, working hard to create things. I made some notes about this. Let's see what I wrote. So protection, they're very productive. It's about creating infrastructures and goods and services for humanity that stand the test of time. You know, he wrote this book. Why am I blanking on the name of it right now? Maps of Meaning, which took him like 15 years to write, and he rewrote every sentence like 50 times. So he really worked hard on this fucking book, and I think he just wants to have it so people have that resource available to them. They say production is made to protect from aggression and theft. So yeah, very productive. Just creating things for people. His community responsibility is called endurance. And the notes I said before was that it's work and effort that ensures survival of humanity and overcoming tragedies and disasters. The interesting thing about this is there's like 3 characteristics or 3 dimensions to global job or community responsibility, and they're aligned with the different roles. And his is all the characteristics are warrior, and so he's the most warrior-like global job and community responsibility possible, the most warrior one. So this guy is like a fucking he's just crazy, man. This is like he's fucking powerful, action-oriented guy. It's just really interesting. I've come across this chart, and what I'm finding out about him is just really interesting. So okay, so that's all the characteristics of his soul that he keeps for all his lives on Earth. Lots of action-oriented stuff. Lots of it. he's just a scholar. Scholar is the only thing that's not action oriented, and it's just about studying. So he's just about studying all this shit. His overleaves. So overleaves are the characteristics that you take on for a life. None of them are the same, unless your soul is really interested in exploring similar kinds of orientations to things. You might choose the same goal more often, or the certain centering, or certain body types, depending on your interest. So he's got this. There's this aspect of the Michael teachings that's called the soul ages. So if you check this out, can I make this bigger? Yeah, let's make that fucking huge. Okay, that's kind of shitty looking, but who gives a shit? Okay, so I made this little chart to show you how the order of the incarnational cycle. So soul ages are these squares at the bottom with these labels. In the Michael teachings, they more traditionally they refer to these soul ages as infant, which is surviving, baby, which is structuring, young, which is striving, mature, which is relating, and old, which is teaching. But this is kind of bullshit, because it's like, I mean, saying like you're an old soul because you're in the teaching, you have a teaching focus. I mean, you've been on the planet longer, it's true, but I mean, old soul is kind of subjective. I think some people kind of can grow more spiritually and deeply than others because they make more intent, or they're more concerned about that, about their spiritual evolution, as to others are not as interested. But when you're at the old soul age, like the teaching level, you've had more experience on the planet, and so you have something to talk about and share with people about your experiences and your insights and your reflections. So that's the teaching one. I'll just talk about each one. The surviving is the first one. It's about surviving. Like, when you first incarnate on the planet, you have to learn how to survive on the planet, because you're not used to the form. You don't know how the form functions. You don't know the whole survival aspect. So you need to spend some time trying to learn it. You have to get used to the planet and see how things function. It's like you're aligned with the root chakra. It's the basic survival. Getting your needs met, getting food, shelter, clothing, sex, all that, whatever the necessities of life are, you need to figure that stuff out. So after that, then you're like, okay, I know how to survive on the planet, but now I want to be part of society. And you start to learn how to fit in and follow rules and guidelines, and kind of understand how society works, as being part of a society, instead of just being in part of clans and tribes that are kind of isolated off from each other and not as structured and built as a society is. Like, so this one, I mean, structuring is kind of stereotypically aligned with more of a fundamentalist viewpoint of things. But I know some people that are very spiritual and deep, and evolved, that are in the structuring, that have structuring focus, or in that the baby soul age. So I mean, it doesn't mean that you're not evolved because you're structuring. It just means that you're focusing on fitting in with society and learning the rules and learning the right way to do things. So once you're done with that, just one thing I wanted to mention, that those numbers, in case you're curious, on top, there's 7 levels for each soul age, and your people spend about 3 or 4 lives on average on each level. I mean, that's kind of an average overall. I mean, overall, this whole cycle, it takes 100 to 200 lives to go through everything. That's the average. So if you're going to say the average is 150, then you have 4 lives on each of these levels. And so as you go through levels, you get more ingrained in that soul age, and you get more comfortable with it, and you understand it better. So once you get to the later levels, like 5, 6, and 7, you're starting, like with 5, you're starting to experiment with the start playing with the soul age a little bit more, trying the extents of it and stuff. So after that, after you go through structuring, you start going to the striving focus, which is also called the young soul age, and it's externally oriented. It's about trying to achieve, like, how big of a mark can you make on the physical plane. That's your that's the focus when you're in striving, is how big can I go? How successful can I be? How big of a mark can I make on the planet? And it's totally externally focused and on achievement. So after that, you go into relating, which is the mature soul age. And relating deals with connecting with other people deeply. You start, reorienting yourself towards the internal landscape of things, and you get in touch with emotions and feeling things. It is more of spirituality becomes more of a concern at this level, although it doesn't mean that you need to be relating to be spiritual. But it deals with the inner emotional landscape of things, and it goes really deep, so it's actually the hardest one, because you're totally orienting yourself from external focus, like the outer world, to the inner world, which is really hard. And like I said, after that, you go to the teaching. After you've had all these experiences, then you start getting more, instead of being more of the emotional aspect, you're more of the kind of intellectually reflecting and connecting together all the different experiences you had. So that's what happens when you're at the teaching. So Jordan Peterson, since we're talking about him, he's actually on the striving one, but he's on the 7th level. So he's done the striving. He's got to the end of it. He knows how it works. He knows how to strive and to achieve and to work hard in the external. But this is really interesting that he's striving level 7, because that means he's like the king. Like, what he's teaching right now is the highest aspect of the striving energy, and it's totally that's his whole teaching. It's all about striving, and you need to you need to have a goal. You have to have an aim. You have to work towards something, or else your life doesn't have any meaning. That's his whole teaching, and that's what his fucking soul age is striving. So he's moving into the relating soul age. When you're at level 7, you've kind of already experienced, or you get kind of a preview of the next one. So he's kind of got a flavor of what he's expecting out of the relating focus, the mature soul age, which follows. But he's the fucking king of the striving focus. He's the teacher. I would say, like, right now, he's like the teacher. If you want to learn about the striving soul age, he's teaching you the right way to do it. He's teaching you the best lessons about it. So that's his soul age, his focus, his striving. The most interesting characteristic of the overleaves, one of the most important ones, is the goal. And there's a few different goals. I mean, there's 7. This whole system works in 7s. So I won't cover each one. I'll just say it real quickly, I guess. Reevaluation, you're reflecting on your life and you're kind of sitting back and not being very active. Growth, you're having a lot of activity, learning a lot of stuff through a lot of experiences. Discrimination, you're learning how to say no and making better decisions about your actions. Acceptance, you're learning how to say yes to things and accept things, even hard things that are hard to deal with in life. You just have to learn how to start accepting it. And you become more of a nice guy kind of orientation to things. Submission, you're kind of dedicated towards a cause or a person of some kind, a project. So you just stick with it. Dominance, you are leading groups. You're kind of destined to be in some kind of leadership position because that's what the dominance requires of you. And flow is, we've had a lot of activity from other past lives. You kind of need a break in some sense. It's kind of like reevaluation in that sense, but flow means that you're learning how to just flow with things, allow things to happen as they are. And you kind of, when you have flow as your goal, you kind of are ensured to have your basic needs taken care of, like getting a roof over your head and getting money and food and all those things kind of come naturally to the person. They kind of got good karma for that. So that's what flow is. But looking at Jordan Peterson's goal, his goal is dominance. And it's so funny because he talks about dominance constantly. The dominance hierarchy, like it's all about dominance. But it's like he's telling you, like, dominance is not a bad thing. Like if you're leading the right way, dominance is good for everybody. It's not like, I mean, there can be bad versions of that. Like I think, let's look real quick. I think Trump is in dominance. Let's see. I mean, I'm sure he is. He's a king in dominance. Yeah, he's in dominance. So you can kind of get an idea of what dominance looks like for somebody who's not as spiritually evolved is looking at what Trump, the way he's gone about dominance is, it's tyrannical and it's not, the positive version of dominance is facilitating win-win solutions. So it's good for the people you're leading and it's good for you. It's good for everybody. Everybody wins. That's dominance. That's the right way to do dominance. So that's his thing. He's dominance. He's got to lead. His attitude is it's a certain like outlook you give on life. And his is idealist, and the idealist is always thinks about how the world can be changed for the better. How can I make things better? How can the world be better than it is? What's the ideal? What's the ideal state of the world, and how can we make it that way? So that's his attitude is that exactly. How can the world be changed for the better? So I mean that's pretty clear if you know about Jordan Peterson. It fits with his Enneagram 1 type for sure. So he's got the mode of observation. And observation mode is the neutral mode. So the modes deal with how your energy is oriented. So his his is just sitting back and watching, observing. That means that you release your energy neutrally, but you watch and you learn, and you get clarity on things through observing. That's observation. So this next one, the centers, is really interesting. The centers, there's 4 centers, and the 4 centers are intellectual, emotional, physical, and moving. You can't orient to the other ones. You can't orient to higher emotional or higher intellectual because you can't stay in that the higher frequencies for very long, and you can't be oriented and instinctive because everybody has instinctive drive that's always functioning. But he chose in this life to be intellectually centered and moving as a secondary. So what he does is he he filters things through his intellect first, and then he starts taking action on it, and that's the moving. Is the action oriented thing. So that's the intellectual moving combination. It's a very common one. I see a lot of people with intellectual moving. It makes sense, to think about something and take action on it. It's a good combo. But I'm sure he's done physical or moving as his primary before, a more action-oriented centering, because his orientation is towards energy. So he's definitely got that aspect. Probably he chooses a lot. But I mean, he's a scholar too, so I mean, intellectual centered makes sense to for learning things on the intellectual plane of things. So this is an interesting one. So the obstacles, the chief obstacles, are the characteristics that are, it's like the negative characteristics of your chart. Everybody's got an obstacle that they choose when they're incarnating. It's something that they have to work through that's really tough. So his is arrogance, which, it sounds like, arrogance sounds like, oh, I'm better than everybody else. Everybody else sucks. I'm the best. That's kind of what the typical arrogance thing means, but it means that you're basically putting out airs around yourself to protect yourself from being judged. So you kind of puff up yourself in some sense. It might not be very obvious, but because you can either be stereotypically arrogant, or you can be the opposite, which is you're afraid of being arrogant. You don't want to be seen as arrogant. And you don't want to be judged. So, a lot of people with arrogance are shy, and they have to overcome their fear of being judged and being in front of people and talking. I actually have arrogance as mine, and it's really tough. You're always worried about what people think, but I'm trying to overcome it through interacting with people a little bit more. And part of this, having this channel, is helping me overcome this arrogance thing. It's aligned with the priest energy, which is interesting. So I wonder if that deals with leadership in some sense, to have that obstacle. His secondary one is impatience, which is dealing with, feel it's like a fear of missing out, like you're missing out on the good stuff with life. You don't want to miss out on things that are happening. So you're always trying to get to the next thing. So he's got a mix of those two. His body type, I'm going to change the title of this because I realize I'm already at an hour. I haven't even gotten to his Vedic astrology or human design. So it's just going to be Michael teachings. Okay. Anyway. He's got the Saturnian body type, which is made for leadership. It's the type for leadership. It's the most active, masculine, positive energy type. It's let's see what I have in my notes about that. Oh, I think I have it in here. Let's see what it says. So, I mean, they have characteristics like physical characteristics, but I don't see that they always fit perfectly. I mean, Saturnians are supposed to be kind of bony. They're supposed to look tall. They have the shoulders, you notice the shoulders with Saturnians the most. Like they have broad shoulders. I'm Saturnian body type too. I've got lunar as my secondary, so I've got kind of I say baby fat. Like I've got some chub that I can't ever get rid of. It's just kind of, it's like the least developed body type, and Saturnian is the most bony, rugged type, I guess. But anyway, Saturnian is used for leadership and strength. They say on the positive level, you're paternal or natural leader, just, moderate, self-controlled, enduring, closed mouth, secretive, calm, can handle crises, pioneering, and they're survivalists. So calm is definitely a characteristic of this, but this is Saturn. It's the energy of Saturn, and Saturn is leadership. If you've got Saturn, and if you're looking at Vedic astrology and you have strong Saturn, that's that's what it's used for, is for leadership, and that's what he's doing. He's got some action centered, action oriented body types too. He's got the Venusian and the Martial. So Venusian, let's look at what that says. Venusian is very sensual, harmonious, socially warm, loving, gentle, not judgmental, loyal, appreciates beauty, easygoing, friendly, and good lovers. So that's interesting. I actually haven't come across a lot of people with Venusian, but that's a secondary. I noticed that in his astrology, which I haven't really talked about yet, but I'll do a different video about that one. He's got some Venus that's pretty strong in his chart. So that's interesting. Martial is definitely the most physical and sexual type. Feisty, vigorous, energetic, passionate, like I said, highly sexed, decisive, freedom-loving, brutally honest, forthright, feisty, live with a flair, defender of the weak and downtrodden. That sounds a lot like him. The defender of the weak and the downtrodden. That really fits with him. So, this is like a crazy good combination of things for. He's got. I'll talk about these real quick before I sum up. His quadrant. You can be. I think it's either love, support, power, or knowledge, and his is support. So he takes his approach of always taking the supporting role when he's in groups. He's the support guy. His needs are adventure, power, and communion. So adventure, having fun activities that are thrilling. Power is, being in some kind of position of influence over people. And communion is dealing with groups and, communing with others. So he's got this group-oriented aspect to him. But if you look at his chart, so I use this color-coded to show you which axes it's aligned with. So the blue is the intellectual or the expression axis. Expression deals with taking the inner world out and expressing it outer. The yellow ones are the inspiration axis, and the red ones are the action axis. and the green is the assimilation axis or the neutral axis. But if you look at his chart, he has a lot of red. He's got the king essence twin, he's got warrior king secondary, he's got the energy orientation, he's got triple warrior job, global job, he's got, he's in the striving focus. He's got the goal of dominance, which is a action oriented one. He's got a moving secondary center, he's got impatience, and he's got the Venusian and martial body types, so very physical. This is an interesting guy. It's a very interesting soul. He's probably the most productive person on the planet. I mean, I don't know that for sure, but that's what I like to think. Because, I mean, who works 16 hours a day? Like constantly working. Like I think he's sick right now, so he's only working like 3, he says, or something, or he's really struggling with it because he's sick. But he works 16 hours every day. That's crazy. I wish I was that disciplined. I just can't. I can't manage to get myself. I mean, maybe if I just start doing things that I really love, like talk about this shit, then I'll be more disciplined. If I just keep it up, But man, I wanted to go through. I wanted to go through his astrology and his human design, but I think I just hit the hour mark, so I think I'll just do these in chapters. I'll start piecing together the story of who he is when I'm looking at these other systems too. But I mean, this is a pretty good overview. I haven't done a video talking about someone's Michael chart before, so he's my first one that I've done, that I posted before. So, I kind of got into the characteristics a little bit more to try to explain things. I probably won't go in as much detail as I did in this one. I just felt like I needed to explain everything the first time. I'll get faster with it. I can't believe I spent an hour. Well, okay. Anywho, I think that's it for now. He's a leader, and he's all about action and the whole action-oriented aspects of things. And he's here to teach people through what he studies and getting really deep into things and studying them because he's a scholar. One other thing I wanted to say is because he's energy orientation, he's probably been in a lot of war, and he's probably done a lot of killing. I mean, if your global job and community responsibility is the most warrior position, you're gonna be in war. You're probably gonna be killing people. So I'm positive that he's done some killing. And he's probably hurt some people in the process, which is interesting because I'll talk about this more later. But he's got his Saturn in Capricorn, and that means that you kind of abuse power in past life, and you have to come back this time and do it right. You have to be in a position of power again, but you have to do it the right way and not fuck people over. So you see him talk about the malevolence. He's like, he gets like emotional on television, which I love this guy because he's so vulnerable and honest about his emotions and what he feels. And it's so moving to see him getting emotional about what he's feeling, but he just, he wants to move away from the dark, evil aspects of things. He doesn't want the world to turn into the Holocaust again. That's just, he was studying that and trying to understand why that happened. And I think he's, had experience in that realm. And so he knows what, how things can go wrong. Cause he's experienced in it. He's an honorary member of the Action Axis, And scholars are also interested in war because they have single input and they're very grounded, like the warriors and kings. So this guy is like the embodiment of war and productivity, and he's a leader. Dominant Saturnian body type. Scholar. It's interesting because I look at his chart and it gives me a lot of context for what I need to do, because I'm also a scholar. I'm also in dominance. I also have the obstacle of arrogance, and I also have Saturnian body type, and I've got the energy orientation. So all those things is very similar. Like I can totally relate to this guy. I'm saying things about him probably killing people because I probably, I've been told I was doing the same thing in past lives, and I can feel that. I can feel when I get manic that I get in touch with this energy that is very aggressive and physical and energetic. So it's interesting. He's an interesting guy. So I'm gonna leave it here for now. I'll start talking about his astrology. I've got his chart here. I've got his body graph from Human Design. So I'll get into that stuff in other videos. But that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to be talking more about Michael teachings and doing more charts and stuff, and talking about people's charts and seeing how everything fits together. So, at some point, I'll consider. I mean, for people who are interested, I'd love to look into this stuff, and I'd love to help people figure out their own stuff. So, if there's an interest for it, people want to know about their Michael teachings charts, I can help facilitate that and help explain it. So there you go. That's Jordan Peterson's Michael chart. Good luck, guys, with life and shit. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.